Hi there, welcome to today's edition of Hard Topics. I'm a regular host on this channel, Femi. Today we shall take a look at a very critical and important topic titled Vow, Promises and Betrayal. Vow, Promises and Betrayal, and what it portends for believers as we go about our daily conduct of our activities. But before we go into it, I'd like to encourage you to click on the notifications icons there, subscribe, and share our videos so that you can help spread the message. Again, today's topic will center on the very critical and important questions people have asked me about how do we go about the conduct of our business as regards when we make promises, when we make vows, and when we renege on them. The Bible clearly states that it is very much okay for you not to make a vow than for you to make a vow and not fulfill that vow. God frowns at you making a vow or making a promise and not fulfilling that promise. God also makes it clear that even if you make a promise in a rush or in a rush, or you make it rashly, and you are not sure, and you realize that you've made a mistake, quickly go and see the person and what? Break yourself free from such promises, from such agreements, or from such oath or bond that you have made, so that you can be free. Because God does not like when you don't keep your promise. Once you make a promise to somebody to do something, you are obligated, you are mandated to follow through and fulfill your promise. If anything comes up that makes you to fall short of the intended promise or agreement or vow that you have made, then you can quickly go to the person and make them understand that, you know what, in the course of attempting to fulfill my vow, such and such and such events happen, and therefore I cannot do it. And then you would seek redress and you can make amends. And usually, if you have broken that promise or that expectation, then you compensate for such a promise that you have made. The reason why you need to go and you fulfill your promise is because whoever you have made that promise to or that vow to will be expecting it. And so some of them might have planned their lives, might have planned their conduct, they've put their hopes, their mind, their interest, their expectations on the fulfillment of that promise or that vow that you have made. And so things might have gone on in their personal lives that your promise has caused them to adjust. And based on that, they are looking forward to it. For example, if you promise to give somebody some amount of money, and maybe that person needs it for a business or for a family, urgent family matter, that person has an expectation that this money is coming into his or her own hands, and because of that, he has gone ahead to make certain plans. Now, if you now don't follow through again, then it may cause a lot of chaos for that person, because he might have gone into another agreement with people saying, look, I'll get this thing by so and so time, I'll give you your money back. They have collected maybe things on credit, on loans, and done business transactions, expecting that the promise that you've made will come true, and therefore they'll be able to redeem their own promises to or their own pledge. But if that doesn't happen, and if you don't follow through, then they'll also renege on their own on their own commitment, and they become unreliable people. And this is very important in governance. We see it in the life of the children of Israel when they were about to conquer in the conquest of Canaan. Joshua led the troops, the army of the Israelites then, who had left Egypt, and they were beginning to enter into Canaan and begin to take territories one after the other. And people saw how God was with them, and they were terrified. All the neighbors, all the countries, the little small countries were terrified. And so the Gibeonites, or some people call, the Bible refers to it at one point as the Hivites or something, but the Gibeonites, they were afraid too that these Israelis, if they come, they will wipe us out. So they devised a plan. They pretended as if they were from a far away country that they wore sackcloth that made them to look like, oh, the distance from Israel to the Canaan to where the Gibeonites came from was maybe miles, thousands and thousands of miles away. But the Bible records that the Gibeonites were very close, were in close proximity to Israel. That was just about a 3 days journey. Remember, back in those days, there was nothing like a car. So usually they go on foot or on donkeys and horses and animals and maybe chariots. And so 3 days journey is not too far. It was very close by. So the Gibeonites pretended as if they were far from a far distance country, and they sought peace. They sought a peace treaty with the Israelites, asking the Israelites not to kill them, not to destroy them, and that they would and that whenever they needed problem, that they would seek the support and the protection of the Israelites, and in return they will give Israelites I think food and material resources and pay I think tributes or that also. And so that was the agreement. They did the agreement. Quite all right. Joshua entered into the agreement, but Joshua did not go to God to seek or to do his due diligence. And this is the crux of the matter that I'm trying to explain here, the crux of the discussion here. Joshua did not do his due diligence, and the children of Israel did not do their due diligence to find out if these people truly were from a far out distant land as they claimed, or they were just deceiving them. They rushed into the covenant. And so when they rushed into the covenant, they were bounded by it. They couldn't break it. So sometime later, when Joshua and the Israelites found out that, oh, these Gibeonites were actually close, they were just about 3 days away from us, and they deceived us, they wanted to go and revenge and actually exterminate and annihilate the Gibeonites. Remember, God had given the Israelis the instruction to wipe out, to totally annihilate all the lands in that area, all the people in that area, so that they can take possession. This is the instruction of the Lord, annihilate everybody. But because they have entered into agreements, into a peace treaty with the Gibeonites, that they are not going to kill them, they're not going to attack them, and they're going to protect them. When Joshua wanted to go ahead and annihilate them, God said, no, you can't do that. You enter into a peace treaty, you enter into an agreement with them, you have given your word, you have given your vow, you have given your promise. You've made a bond with them, and so you can't break. If you've entered into a oath with them, if you go ahead and destroy and break that oath, I will destroy you too. So Joshua and the people of Israel had no other option but what? To abide by the oath, by the covenant, by the treaty, by the promise and the vow and the agreement they made. It's a contract, and so they got to agree. They were forced to agree with it. But in order for the children of Israel to exact a form of vengeance or a form of a punishment to the Gibeonites, then I said, okay, since you tricked us, you deceived us, and we can't break our covenant with you because our God will be displeased with us. What we'll do instead is, for the protection that we have promised you, and in relation to you giving us maybe food and all that, supplying us and paying tributes to us, we will make you fetch water for us and cut wood for us. So you'll be cutters of wood for us, and you'll be fetchers of water for us. You will not have a standing as freeborn Israelis. And that was it. Even though they made an agreement in rush, even though God had given them an instruction to annihilate the Gibeonites, but because they made a vow, they made a covenant, they made a promise, they are bound by that promise. So as a Christian believer, as a believer, once you make a promise, you are bound by it. And this applies in all aspects of human life: personal, business, religion, and what have you. Now, if you take it further, let's say in the realm of politics and leadership and governance, and even in warfare, just like the case of the Israelites and the Gibeonites, if you are on the side of a particular person let's say you decide to go with camp A or camp B, and you said, okay, you have given your word to somebody, you're on the side of that person, you have made that person to believe that you are supporting them, then it is your responsibility to follow through. Do not betray people. God does not support betrayal. Yes, you can say, oh, politics. Politics is a game of numbers. Politics is they say it's a dirty game. There are no permanent interest. There are no permanent enemies. There are no permanent friends in politics, but there are permanent interests. Yes, I agree that there are no permanent friends. There are no permanent enemies. There are permanent interests in politics. But you must be a man of integrity and a man of your word. If you know within your heart that this particular person, you cannot support them, you don't want to be part of them, you don't need them, then don't hand their trust to the extent that they expose their secrets to you, and you now use that secret to against them, even against them, to support their enemies. You support their enemies against them. You can't be eating with someone, dining with someone, showing your love and affection for someone, going to the deepest intimate uh discussions, conversations with someone, and then you now leave the secret out at the very last minute in order to destroy that person. That is betrayal. And that is not scriptural. So, and I'll give examples. If someone has said, oh, what if you are like a soldier, you are a spy, excuse me, you are a soldier, you are a spy, and you are sent to the enemy's camp, and then you are asked to eliminate or get information from the enemy. Well, in that case, you are a soldier, you are a spy. If your camp or your team or your platoon ask you to go into the infiltrate the enemy camp in order to pretend or in order to get advantage, that is fair game. If truly you are on the side, on the right side, God will give you success. And if that person is also on the right side with God or is on the wrong side with God, God will indicate. If truly your cause is genuine and your cause is on the right, God will ask you victory. If your cause is not genuine, God may even tell that person that the enemy, and expose and say, look, there's uh some spies in your camp. You better guard yourself. And if that person now takes measures or takes appropriate steps to get against you that you're sent to spy against him, good luck to him. But if he doesn't take it, good luck to him too. He will face the consequence of that. But in that case, you are sent as a spy. You are doing your work. You are performing your duty. You are not betraying anybody because you were sent from the camp of from the camp of the adversaries. Even though they don't know, you blended with them. That's fine. But if you have promised, you have given your vow, your word to somebody, you eat with the person, you strategize, you plan with the person, and you know through of your heart that you harbor resentment, you harbor bitterness, you harbor or guilt, you have any notion of pain or any form of grievance towards that person, yet you pretend to be that person's friend, you pretend to be loyal, you loyal to the person, you got that person's secret, you know that person's weak point, and just because of your jealousy or because of your anger or because of your bitterness or because of your disagreement, you now want to expose and leak the secret of that person in order to just hurt and spite that person. You expose it to his enemies with the person thinking and believing that you are in the same camp. That is betrayal. That is not you being spying anything. That is betrayal. Because you have gained the confidence of such a person, you have agreed to be able to work with that person, and that person has held you in confidence. That is betrayal. And that's not right. And usually the punishment for such a betrayal is death. Maybe destruction or death. Destruction in whatever you're doing, or physical death. And I'll give examples. In the Old Testament, when David was the king, Absalom, his son, rebelled against David, and David had to flee the throne, had to leave Israel. and was hiding. I think it was in a cave, in a stronghold, because of the rebellion that came from um from his son Absalom. And who encouraged him to do that rebellion? It was a man called Ahithophel. Ahithophel was a chief advisor to David. Was David's bosom friend, David's close advisor, and he encouraged his son, uh, Absalom's son, to rebel against his father. In fact, in the course of the rebellion, Ahithophel then gave a counsel, knowing David very well, knowing David's strategy, military strategy, knowing his weak point. He said, "Look, Ahithophel, David is camped somewhere here. Let's go there and attack him at once, and we'll be able to kill David, and you, Absalom, can become king." And Ahithophel's counsel was right, because it was an insider to David. So he knew the strategy, he knew David's strategy very well, weak point. And it was right. But because the Lord was on David's side, and that's why I told you that if the Lord is on the side of your enemy, your plans will not succeed. Because the Lord God was with David and was on David's side, another advisor called Ushai now said, "No, you know what? That plan is not good. Don't go and attack David there. Let's wait for more fortification of all my armies. Then we'll go in a large number." It was the other advice that Ushai gave to counteract or to nullify the true, the correct strategy advice that Ahithophel gave, that led David to escape. Because had they followed the plan, the counsel of Ahithophel, who was David's chief advisor, who knew David in and out, who knew probably about his military strategies, they would have been caught by Absalom, and they would have been executed. But because God was on David's side, God brought another counsel, Ishai, to say, "You know what? Don't abandon, don't go on that plan." And therefore, that Ahithophel's counsel was what? Was abandoned. And David was able to escape. Can you see? Someone was very close. He knew the strategy and he betrayed. But what now happened? That after the said rebellion, Absalom lost his life, and the plan failed. Ahithophel, who had counseled Absalom to rebel against his father, decided to hang himself because he could not face the shame and the disgrace of what he has done. He hung himself and he died. And we can see in the Psalm of David, when David was lamenting about this, and he said somewhere in the Psalm that, "Look, if it was an outsider, it was a foreigner, it was a stranger that deceived me, that took counsel against me, that attempted to kill me, that betrayed me, I wouldn't have even bothered. Okay, this is my enemy. But how come you, my closest friend, my closest confidant, my chief advisor, the one who went to the house of the Lord together, that we worship God together, that we pray together, that we ate together, you, my friend, you were the one that betrayed me this way?" It was really devastating. That's to show you the extent of you betraying people. It doesn't matter whether it's politics, whether it's governance, it's not. Betrayal is betrayal. If you're not going to support somebody, don't support the person. If you're not going to give your word, if you have two candidates and you're not sure, just say, "You know what, both of you are good, we'll look at it and play it that way, neutral." Don't give your word. But if you give your word to somebody, you follow the person, you know the secret person, and you now leak it to another person, after you have given your word and the person has trusted you, that is betrayal. That's not being smart. And you will punish for it. And usually the punishment by God, when the Christ of God, is destruction. Physical death most times. The same thing happened in the life of Jesus Christ. You know, David was Old Testament. In the life of Jesus Christ, Judas Iscariot, they had tried to kill Jesus several times. But the Bible records that Jesus escaped because his time had not come. But this particular time, the Sanhedrin, the leaders, the Jewish leaders then, who didn't like Jesus' preachings and way of teaching, decided to what? To capture him and to kill him and to execute him. And so because they tried on several occasions, they didn't get him. Anytime they tried, the Bible records that Jesus would what? Slip away from them because his time had not come. And so they decided to go and meet Judas Iscariot, one of his disciples. Now, there's a lot of controversy about, oh, Judas Iscariot was just fulfilling prophecy. There were things. I mean, I'm not going to go to that. I think I've done that with that in one of my previous videos. But that'll be another discussion for another time. But the point here is that they needed somebody to identify Jesus Christ for them because he was always disappearing. He was always slipping away from them. And I think Judas Iscariot was just thinking we wanted to make a fast one or whatever. But Judas Iscariot betrayed Jesus and said, oh, this is the man. Catch him. And Jesus Christ was what? Was caught. And when Judas Iscariot realized what he did, the Bible records that he hung himself. He killed himself by hanging himself. What happened was that, Jesus Christ did not die after Judas. Judas died before Jesus Christ was what? Was sent, was crucified on the cross. The same thing happened with Ahithophel. Ahithophel died before King David. The same thing applied. We can go even in the case of, even though it's not the case of betrayal in that sense, Haman and Mordecai. Okay? And what have you like that? The point here is that in politics, in governance, in leadership, in business transaction, betrayal is not a good thing. Being a person of integrity, standing your ground is always very, very commendable. Be dependable. Let people trust you. The Bible says, let your yea be your yea and your nay be your nay. And if you cannot give your yea or your nay, just stay neutral and keep quiet. Just stay neutral and keep quiet. Don't betray somebody. Once you've given your word, try as much as possible to fulfill that word that you have given. And if you cannot fulfill it, if you find out that you have done it in error, then go back to the person and find a way to seek redress, to make amends, to correct. And if you know something that will hurt, then try and compensate for the lapses that you might have caused. I hope you have a better understanding of the subject matter about making promises, vows, and betrayals, and the consequences for our daily living as believers. Thank you.